Terroir. It's a word we use in wine. It means the complete natural environment in which a particular wine is produced. The soil, the topography, the climate, the sunlight. But it's more than that. It's the character of the land. And for a family vineyard, terroir includes the people, their hands, their arguments, their secrets, their love, their betrayals. Our terroir, the legacy of Chateau Rosemère, was a blend of my father's stubborn hope, my mother's artistic soul, my meticulous care, and my sister Lily's brilliant, chaotic spirit. For 2 generations, we produced not just wine, but a story in a bottle. And then, in one boardroom vote, that story nearly became a tragedy. This is not a simple tale of good sister, bad sister. It is the story of how we both, in our own ways, tried to save the vine by nearly cutting it off at the root. Lily is 8 years younger than me. Where I saw the vineyard as a living organism to be tended, she saw it as a stage. She was our face, our charm. She could talk to a French sommelier about tannic structure, and 10 minutes later have a truck driver laughing over his lunch pail. She brought in the distributors, dazzled the critics at tastings. I was in the fields, in the cellar, in the accounts. She was in the spotlight. It was a perfect partnership. Or so I believed. When our parents passed within a year of each other, they left us equal shares. 50-50. A vote of profound, and as it turned out, perilous faith. The business was healthy, but not without its debts. The old vines were expensive to maintain. A bad frost had hit us. We were vulnerable. The hostile bid came like a late summer hailstorm. A corporate entity, Vintner's Horizon Group. They offered a price that was on paper generous. But their reputation was clear. They bought family vineyards, stripped the assets, fired the staff, rebranded the label, and sold the wine for 10 times the volume at half the soul. They were the antithesis of everything we were. The board meeting was a formality, I thought. Lily and I were the board. We sat in our father's old study. I laid out my case. We would refinance, we would tighten our belts, we would launch a new reserve label. We had weathered storms before. Lily was quiet. Unusually so. She twisted a pen in her fingers, her eyes on the polished table, not on me. Lil, it's a straight vote. We reject the offer. We fight. She looked up then, and her eyes were hollow. A look I'd never seen before. Not the sparkle of my sister, but the flat sheen of desperation. I can't, Grace. What do you mean you can't? It's our home. I vote in favor of the acquisition. The room didn't spin. It crystallized. Every detail became sharp and cruel. The grain of the wood, the dust motes in the sunbeam, the faint tremor in Lily's hand. Why? She wouldn't answer. Just, it's the right thing for the business. A clean exit. We're being sentimental. Sentimental? This is our life. It's a business, Grace. And businesses that can't adapt die. She shot back, a rehearsed line that didn't sound like her. She stood up and left. The vote was tied. 50-50. But in our shareholder agreement, a tied vote triggered a clause. It went to binding arbitration, heavily weighted toward the best financial outcome for all parties. Vintner's Horizon had just won. I learned the why later that week, from a private investigator I hired in a blind fury. Lily's secret. Not a lover, not an illness. A hidden room in a city an hour away. A casino. And debts. First, cascading debts. Loans from people who did not send polite reminder letters. They had given her an ultimatum. Her share of the sale would clear her debt, with a little left over. She had sold our birthright for a clean slate. My grief turned to something colder, harder, more potent than any wine we'd ever produced. It was the must of pure revenge. Lily believed she had secured a future, free and clear. What she had actually done was declare war. Revenge, I discovered, is a lot like winemaking. It requires patience, a controlled environment, and the introduction of a precise agent of transformation. I didn't scream. I didn't sue. I began to subtly, systematically, sabotage the value of the asset she had just sold. I was still the managing director. Vintner's Horizon needed a transition period. I used it. I called our oldest, most loyal distributors, the ones Lily had charmed. In hushed, confidential tones, I expressed my deep concerns about VHG's quality control plans. I hinted they might blend our premier grapes with cheaper juice from elsewhere. The rumor, once planted, spread like mildew. Then the Cask 17 incident. A batch of our most expensive reserve blend. I arranged for a single barrel, just one, to be accidentally stored at a fluctuating temperature. It spoiled. I then reluctantly informed our key clients of a potential minor inconsistency in the Cask 17 batch, offering replacements from older stock. The story mutated in the retelling. There's taint in the Rosemere cellars. Grace is trying to contain it. The market's perception is its reality. Our pre-orders began to soften. The value Vintner's Horizon had placed on us began, ever so slightly, to deflate. My masterpiece, however, was the sabotage deal. VHG's plan relied on using our distribution to launch their own mass-market label. I set up a meeting with our largest partner. I arrived early. I had a private word with the CEO, an old friend of our father's. I showed him a confidential, and entirely fabricated, email chain, suggesting VHG was in secret talks with his direct competitor to create an exclusive partnership, sidelining him entirely. He was furious. When the VHG executives arrived, smiling and ready to sign, they were met with a cold wall of hostility. The deal collapsed. I watched from the sidelines, my face a mask of professional regret. Inside, I was the frost that kills the first buds of spring. I was going to make this vineyard so toxic, so financially fraught, that Vintner's Horizon would either abandon it or pay a fraction of the price. And if it collapsed into ruin, well, then Lily would get nothing. And nothing was what she deserved for her betrayal. Lily, freed from her debts but shackled by my silent war, was initially oblivious. She traveled. She enjoyed her liberation. But she wasn't a fool. She began to hear the whispers. She saw the stalled deals. She got a call from a confused and angry distributor. She came back to the estate. She found me in the North Block, inspecting the vines. "What are you doing, Grace?" No charm left. Just a raw, tired accusation. "My job. Managing the vintage." "You're strangling it. I'm hearing things, terrible things, from people we've worked with for 20 years. I turned to her, the spring sun feeling cold on my skin. "Are you? How strange. It's almost as if the business is reacting to being sold to a soulless conglomerate. Markets are sensitive, Lily." Her eyes searched mine, and for the first time, she saw past the sister to the strategist. "It's you. You're doing this." I didn't deny it. I let my silence speak. What happened next, I did not expect. She didn't crumble. She didn't run to VHG. She stayed. She moved back into the old guest cottage. And she started doing the one thing I could never have anticipated. She began to work. Truly work. Not as the charming front woman, but as a laborer. She was in the fields at dawn with the crew. She asked questions. Humble, genuine questions about rootstock, about pruning, about pH levels. She was trying to understand the organism she had voted to dismember. And she began to dig. Not into the market rumors, but into the estate itself. She requested files, old ledgers, cellar reports. She was looking for something. She found it in our father's handwritten journals. Not a financial secret, but an enological one. A crisis he'd faced decades prior. A phylloxera scare in a neighboring block. He'd saved it not with chemicals, but by grafting onto resistant rootstock in a specific, painstaking pattern he'd developed. a method he'd never patented, never published. It was the rosemary secret. And the journal indicated that the mother vines from that salvation were not in the main block, but in a forgotten quarter-acre plot near the old stone wall. The plot that, according to the VHG survey maps and the sale agreement, was considered marginal land, and was to be sold off for residential development to immediately recoup costs. Lily came to me, the journal in her hands, her nails chipped with dirt. "Do you know what this is?" Her words landed like a falling branch. I had been so focused on making the vineyard worthless to them, I hadn't let myself see that I was making it worthless, period. I was the one blending the poison into the cask. My revenge would ensure that even if by some miracle we kept the land, no one would ever want a bottle of rosemary again. The terroir would be one of bitterness. We didn't reconcile that day, but a ceasefire fell. A terrible, exhausted silence. Lily took her discovery to Vintner's horizon, not as a plea, but as a weapon. She argued that the marginal land was, in fact, the most valuable genetic asset of the vineyard, intentionally miscategorized. She threatened a lawsuit for fraudulent misrepresentation that would tie the sale up in courts for years, during which the vineyard's value, thanks in part to my sabotage, would evaporate. She was playing their game, and she was learning. I, meanwhile, was faced with my own reflection in the wine press, and I didn't like the woman I saw. I had become the hostile force. I had to choose. Did I want to win, or did I want Rosemary to live? The answer, when it came, was not a shout, but a quiet, devastating certainty. I wanted the vineyard, more than I wanted to punish Lily. We met, by unspoken agreement, in the cellar. The air was cool, smelling of oak and earth. "We have a tied vote," I said, my voice echoing slightly. "We always have," she replied, a ghost of her old smile touching her lips. "We need a new vintage, a new blend." "What's the recipe?" The plan we forged that night was our first true partnership. It was ruthless, but its goal was preservation. We went back to VHG together, a united front. Lily presented the legal threat of the miscategorized land. I presented the cold, hard numbers. The declining orders, the partner distrust, the tangible devaluation I had orchestrated. I made it clear the rot would continue, from within, unless they walked away. But we didn't just threaten. We offered a solution. We proposed a management buyout, a price far lower than their original offer, financed by a consortium of our loyal distributors, the very people I had warned, who believed in the true legacy and were appalled by the VHG threat. The distributors would get exclusive rights, we would get our land back, and VHG would get a clean, quick exit from a deteriorating, litigious situation. It was a brutal negotiation. But for the first time, Lily and I were on the same side of the table. Her charm disarmed, my precision calculated. We were an unstoppable blend. And we won. That was 7 years ago. The scars are still there. In the land, and between us. Trust, once fermented into vinegar, can never truly become wine again. But it can become something else. Something usable. A caution. Lily runs the sales and outreach. I run the production and finance. We have a third tie-breaking vote on the board now. Our head winemaker, a woman who cares only for what's in the bottle. Our first wine under the new regime was called Reconciliation. It was a bold, controversial, beautiful red. Some critics found it uncomfortably complex. Others called it the most honest expression of the terroir in a generation. Lily hasn't placed a bet in 7 years. She goes to meetings, not casinos. I haven't sabotaged a deal. I built them. We almost destroyed it all. In trying to protect our idea of legacy, mine through control, hers through escape, we nearly rendered the legacy extinct. We learned that the enemy is rarely just at the gate. Sometimes it's in the vineyard, wearing your own face, speaking with your own voice. So, if you inherit something precious, a business, a tradition, a family name, beware the simple story. There is no hero or villain in a vineyard, only growers and the elements. And sometimes, the most destructive hail comes from within. The question you must ask when the storm comes is not, how do I win? But what am I trying to save? And you must be prepared for the answer to be terribly, inconveniently different from what you first believed. Raise a glass to the difficult vintages. They often teach us the most about what we're made of. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.